a welcome.
A welcome and introductions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But so you were the first from your school?
Yeah, I was the first from my school. Yeah.
Britnie,
Love
that's
that.
incredible.
Love that.
Thank you. Yeah, they were all very excited. I was fucking beaming. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, very cool. I'm gonna open this up and we're gonna get started. So I am very, very excited to have a special guest on. Myself and Brandon know Britnie from Juilliard. She's a current student at Juilliard. I'll let her introduce herself, but we've just been having a great time before we've gone live, just chatting, learning about each other, talking about our experiences. And we're just honored to be able to hear her story, her voice, and that's what we're going to talk about tonight. Before I let her introduce herself, I just want to make sure that anybody who's joining us is welcomed. We're so excited to have you on. This is a YouTube Live where we get you into drama school. That is what we are all about. And these YouTube Lives are a really great opportunity for you to get like insight and real relatability. And often these are some of the most valuable moments in your preparation when you just get some FaceTime with people who have prepared for it, have gotten accepted to great schools, are willing to share their story, right? I mean, you can imagine how many gold nuggets, you just get in these type of calls. So we're very excited you're here, whether you're a parent, whether you're a student, whether you're a teacher, you are all helping the next generation of talent step into their leadership, step into their next level of education powerfully. So thank you for that. Thank you to Brandon, my co-leader on this venture of how to get into drama school. He is here. We'll let him introduce himself in a second. And of course, as I mentioned, Britnie is here. So I'll let Britnie kick it off since she's the she's the new guest. Britnie, share with us a little bit about, where you're at right now and where you've come from, and then we'll kind of get into some questions later.
Hi, I'm Britnie Narcisse. I am currently I'm going into my second year at Juilliard. I'm group 51. Before Juilliard, I had gone to performing arts high school. I also went to performing arts middle school. I think I've been acting since I think I was like 9 years old. I've always known I wanted to be an actress, but like I started like taking classes and things when I was 9. I'm 18 now.
What high school did you go to?
I went to the Professional Performing Arts School.
Cool. So that's also known as PPAS, which is located in New York City. It's one of the top drama high schools where you can go and act, sing, dance.
Yeah.
They have a theater program as well. So yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. Thank you. And I always like letting Brandon introduce himself because, as a classmate of his, I've been in class with Brandon. We were in class together at Juilliard. He's one of my best friends, and he's an awesome coach, mentor, everything you could possibly want. So, Brandon, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah. So, yes, I'm Brandon Gill, New York. Went to Juilliard with Wofford. It's Group 38. I also went to Performing Arts High School, went to LaGuardia High School, which is basically another equivalent of the school that Britnie went to in New York City. I've been acting since I was 11, and now after Juilliard, I've done film, Broadway, television, theater, try to do it all. And I also coach. This is why we're here, to get you into drama school.
Yep. My name's Anthony. I persuaded the teachers to accept me into Juilliard. I didn't even audition. I started acting when I was at Juilliard. No, just kidding. I went to a public school, one of the lowlings. No, we had a great time. Brandon and Britnie are performing arts high school students, which is super valuable for a lot of the folks on here who are at performing arts high school. I represent another group of people who go to just public school who, sometimes that program is great, sometimes it's not. I was at a good program and was fortunate enough to have good guidance, from the upperclassmen who went before me and got accepted to different cool schools and were willing to share their wisdom. So I really find it valuable to have a strong community as you prepare for auditions. I really find it valuable to have, good feelings about your monologues, your audition, your flow, everything. And that's what we're here to give you in addition to what you've already been given. So first, for the gamut. So let's get right into it. Tonight's topic is how we did it. Last week, we talked about choosing the right schools, which is a big conversation. And next week, we're going to talk about something else, which will be a whole nother conversation about preparation. But tonight, we're just going to talk about our story, right? How valuable is that just to hear stories? So how we did it. There's going to be some questions I kind of ask everybody. I'll obviously input my own. And before I ask the first question, I just want everybody to know so they're not confused. If they see me drinking tea, I'm drinking some tea, which is awesome. And my favorite snack, popcorn.
Some popcorn.
I hope everybody gets, their favorite snack and we just, have a nice casual setting here. So don't think it's weird if I just have a little popcorn drop.
There we go.
So the first question I wrote down, and we'll get to some questions too. I know we're going to see some questions pop into the chat. We'll get to those for sure. First question. Let's talk about some facts. Let's just get the facts out there. Britnie, Brandon, myself. Start with Britnie. What pieces did you do?
Okay, I had 4 pieces. The first one was from Jitney by August Wilson. I was playing Rena. And then I had a piece from Antony and Cleopatra where I was playing Cleopatra.
Awesome.
And those were really, Jitney and Antony and Cleopatra were really the only 2 that I really did. The other 2, I played Julia from Two Gentlemen in Verona. I did that piece maybe a couple times. And then I had one piece from The Submission by Jeff Talbot where I played Emily, and I never did that one.
But you had it kind of as a backup.
Yeah, I had it, but I never did it.
We all have our backups.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, there are definitely some backup pieces that you always have. Juilliard, I believe Juilliard and maybe NYU grad are the only 2 programs that ask for 4 pieces. They actually ask for 4 pieces. You may be asked to do all 4. You may not be asked to do. Like, I know I only ever did 3 for my Juilliard audition. I know Britnie said she only ever did 3. How many did you do, Wofford?
I did 2.
You know what? You did 2 at Juilliard?
Yeah, I did 2.
I only did 2 at Juilliard, but for all of the other, I was never asked to do more. Well, University of Minnesota asked me to do like 5.
Oof. Yeah.
I was ready.
He was ready.
I was ready. Brandon, which ones did you do?
I did Othello by William Shakespeare, playing Othello. I did Romeo and Juliet by William Shakespeare, playing Romeo. I did the Laramie Project. Ooh, who wrote the Laramie Project?
Moises Kaufman.
Moises Kaufman, that's right. And I did Before It Hits Home by Cheryl D. West.
Cool.
Yeah, those are the 4 pieces I did. But those are 4 pieces I prepared. But they only asked me to do. I never did my Romeo and Juliet. I always did the other 3.
And you were like, dang, that was my best one.
I know, but that's the one I actually really wanted to do, kind of. But what I think actually happened is I thought my Othello was really strong. I think my Laramie Project was like so-so. And so they needed to see something else. So every time after I did my second monologue, they like talked for a bit and they're like, do you have a 3rd piece? And I was like, I do. And I did it. Yeah. And once I did the 3rd piece, I think they're like, okay, all right, I think, okay, cool.
Just confirming, yeah.
Right, just had to make sure.
Absolutely. Awesome. I did Italian-American Reconciliation by John Patrick Shanley, and I did Richard II. And that's what I did for Juilliard. I had like 7 pieces prepared, that was the only time that I did those 2 pieces for an audition. I did not do that combo for any other school. I was just feeling it that day. I was like, you know what, I'm doing these 2. I prepared. It sounds like all of us had that where we prepared multiple monologues so we were ready. And that's got to be what you write down as far as your first tip. Like, it's just a guarantee. You got to prepare at least 4 that you're like, boom, boom, boom. If they call on any of these, I'm ready to rock. All right, moving on.
Absolutely.
Those are some facts. Let's actually go to a question from the chat box. Where do you go to find monologues? Robert asked. Now, this is a whole different topic. One of the biggest topics we cover at How to Get Into Drama School is choosing the right monologues. Like last week's topic on our YouTube Live was choosing the right schools. And then a future topic on these YouTube Lives will be choosing the right monologue. So we'll go in depth in that. But since it's asked right now, let's each give our perspective on how did you find the right monologues for you? Britnie, you can start.
I believe the Jitney monologue I was given by a teacher like a year before I even thought of auditioning for schools, for like another audition, I think for some summer program I was thinking of doing, or something outside of school that I had to audition for. And I was just given it. And then when college auditions came around, I just thought of it and I was like, what about this one? And then I learned it again. And that was that. Antony and Cleopatra, I was doing in class. And I wasn't planning on using it for any auditions. It was just like this one class project. And then I just thought, well, why don't I just use this for audition? Why not? Because my teacher had given it to me and she said, she thought that it fit me. And I was like, okay. The submission, I think also another teacher gave me, and Two Gentlemen in Verona, I think another teacher just gave it to me. Because I just asked like all my teachers, like, what are monologues that I would be able to do, or monologues that they think I'd be good at. And they gave me like a couple, or like a pile of them. And then I just kind of sifted through and just found the ones that I liked. Nice. And they did change. There were a few that I was planning on. I think I was planning on doing Goneril from King Lear, and I scrapped that one. And there was another one from Two Gentlemen of Verona that I had initially started with, and I let it go because I didn't like it anymore. You know, it shifted. It kept shifting for a little bit.
Yeah, you kind of were responsive to your own, how you're responding to the monologue. You should really take that into consideration. I think what I got from Britney's response is that she definitely used her teachers and asked them straight up, and that's really helpful. They have information, and if they don't have information, maybe they know someone who does. Or they can, so resources is good. And then also, don't deny how inspired you are. If something falls off, initially you liked it, but then, 3 months out from auditions, you're not feeling it, move on, right? You want to keep responding artistically to your work.
And I always say, like, sometimes you could read a monologue and could be like, okay. But once you put it on its feet, you're like, oh, wait, this is way more magical. This is actually better storytelling than I thought it was on paper. So definitely don't be, I say to everyone, don't be afraid to try some pieces, especially if you start early. I think Britney and I, we started working on her pieces in October for January auditions. So we had time to like sift through things and try some stuff out and see if it worked. Like, you can definitely try pieces to figure out what works for you. Yeah. For me, but for how I chose my pieces, I did Othello my 3rd year in high school. I did a couple of scenes from there. And what I actually did is my monologue comes from a scene between Othello and Iago. And I kind of like cut Iago's lines out and kind of smashed my lines together.
You slide that.
But it became a great monologue. I mean, because there was a huge chunk of text and I just needed some
more
lines. It worked though. It worked. But like, so I got most of my pieces from recommendations through teachers. So I think what Britney is saying is like very true. Is like your teachers are sometimes the best resources. But if you don't go to performing arts high school, I think you absolutely can go to the Performing Arts Library. I know there's definitely one in New York, located in Lincoln Center. Some of these cities also have a store called Shakespeare & Co. Shakespeare & Co. stands for company. They have a lot of drama books and a lot of acting and theater resources as well. And if the worst comes to worst, or not even the worst, but you can look through monologue books. But the thing about looking through monologue books is you have to find the monologue. But once you find the monologue, you must find the play, because the monologue is not going to give you enough information. It's not going to give you enough given circumstances, your relationship to people, etc., that you're going to need to tell a full story. So definitely, absolutely, you can look at monologue books. But if you look at monologue books, make sure you find the play.
Awesome. That was awesome. I'll save my story for when we do YouTube Live on that topic of choosing the right monologues. I think what they said was awesome. So let's get into some feelings about how we did it. We've talked about some facts, what we did as monologues. And I want to ask some questions about actually like what happened in your audition. You know, and then we'll get into some details. Actually, before we get into the feelings about how you felt about it, let's actually talk about just what happened when you walked in, what you remember, and then all the way until you walked out. Obviously, try to keep it somewhat brief because we'll get into some more meaty stuff. But I want to hear actually just, if I don't know what goes on in an audition, literally, I know that I'm supposed to prepare monologues, but like, should I expect, what should I expect? So go ahead, Britnie. What happened when you walked in?
Well, for my Juilliard audition, we'll just talk about the Juilliard one.
Talk about,
For that one, Brandon remembers this, but there was like an hour before I walked in where I was very nervous, and I was texting him and I was like, I am so scared. I am not ready for this. And then I think half an hour later, I don't know what struck in my head, but I was just like, I am not scared anymore. I was like, I'm ready to do this. I am so, and it was like the biggest rush of adrenaline that I had ever had. And I was like, I'm so ready to do this. Like, I am so, and it was like, I was sitting outside of the room and I was like, I am so ready. Like, I am so ready. And maybe it was like this long voice memo that Brandon sent me that was just like, you are so ready. You're going to kill this. But I had so much confidence before I walked in that room, and I was not feeling that like the hour before. But when I walked in the building, I was fine. It was like when I had time to sit in the waiting room that I was like, oh my God, can I do this? Like, I'm so worried, I'm gonna mess it up. But in those like 10 minutes, like half an hour before, I was just like, I'm so ready. And I felt really confident about it. And I was just spending that time really thinking about my pieces. And for me personally, I couldn't, I realized for myself, I couldn't think about the words. I could not think about the lines. I could not go over the lines in my head because that would just make me nervous. Because I would just think about, oh, what if I forget this word, or I'm going to forget that. And it would just drive me up the wall. So I just didn't, I forgot all about the words. And I was like, I'm just going to think about the characters. Who are the characters that I'm playing? What is the story that I'm about to tell? And I thought really long and hard about that. And I got really into that space. And then I walked in, and again, it was like lightning struck where I had all this adrenaline and I was very confident and I was very sure of myself.
How many people were in your audition room?
Three, just three.
She means behind the table, like the actual auditors, not other students.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just three people. I did my first piece. I introduced myself. I did my first piece. I stopped for a second, gathered myself again, took a deep breath, and I went into my second piece. Then I was asked to sing, and I don't love singing at all.
I'm with you.
I fully went for it. I was like, my voice can crack, and I seriously don't care. And it did crack, and I just kept going. I was like, this is what I'm gonna do. And then
so wait, quickly to touch upon that is that a lot of these schools will ask for like 16 to 32 bars of a song, and it's not to hear if you can sing; it's to see if you can tell a story.
Yep.
And that's all it is.
Yep. And I'm not a singer. I'm not. And like, I've been told many a time that I wasn't. And like, I'm definitely working on it. Like, I'm trying to get better. But at the time, I was like, I really don't have any singing training. I've like worked on this song, but like, I'm giving you the best that I can. And that was really all that they cared about. They only cared about me being able to tell the story and deliver it with confidence. And that's what I did. And I sang.
Did they say anything?
And then
notes or direction?
No, they were just like, they all looked at each other and they were like, is everyone good? And then I was like, okay. And then they were like, yeah, we're good. And I was like, okay. And then I waited outside for a quick second, and one of the monitors that was a student, she went inside to ask them, I guess, if they need to see me again, because some people have to go, outside and inside. They have a new process now that's like second looks and things like that. But when I did it, she just went inside and asked that if they needed to see me again. And then I guess they said no, because she came out and she was like, you're good to go. And then, yeah, I waited for the callback email.
Very cool. Very cool. Hope that gives you guys a perspective. Now, that is actually probably a really healthy perspective, because when Brandon and I auditioned, it was slightly different. Although I would say 90% is very similar. But yeah, we didn't have second looks, and the callback process is slightly different. But Brandon, you want to highlight kind of what happened? You know what? Highlight it briefly. I want you to hear your story, but I want to share mine because I was doing it in a different city.
Yes, yours is
that might be a good. Yeah.
Literally, like mine is like kind of the same, but different. I auditioned right across the street from my high school. But which is interesting though is that whatever. So cool. Went to my audition. And my audition was basically from like 8 a.m. to 11 p.m. at night. We went in. They have a morning session, afternoon session. Cool. I went in the morning session. Boom. I did my 2 pieces. I think they did some talking. Then they asked me for my 3rd piece. I was like, okay, cool. I did my 3rd piece. And then afterwards, like, okay, great. Waited outside for the callback list. I didn't know anything about Juilliard. I didn't know about the clout. I didn't know about who went there. I really knew absolutely nothing. So I didn't know that.
Fascinating.
Yeah. Even though it was across the street from my high school. So I knew nothing about it. And so once the callback list went up and we were cut from like 200, 300 people to 14 people, I was like, oh, wait a minute. I think something's happening here. And so they cut us from so we brought back the 14 of us. We did all of our pieces again in front of all of the faculty at Juilliard, which is about maybe about 20 to 25 people in a room.
Right.
Yes.
Did the pieces again.
Right.
Then they cut the 14 down to 11. And then that 11, we did some group exercises. So we did some group speech exercises. We did some group movement exercises in front of the teachers. Then they cut the 11 down to 9. And then I think we sang and did our pieces again. And then after the 9, they cut us down to 5. And 5 of us got interviewed. And it's funny that a lot of the people from my callback or from my day were actually ended up in my class.
Really?
Wow.
Yeah, which is like strange. Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah, none of the people in my callback were in my class.
Yeah.
Very cool. So hopefully that gives you guys a perspective of what happens in the room. Now, would y'all say it's any different at any other school?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, most schools don't have that lengthy of a callback, like initial day process.
For sure.
Yeah, most schools do not have that same day callback and then the callback weekend thing too.
Yeah,
but
right.
You guys didn't have callback weekend when you did it. Yeah.
No, we didn't have callback weekend. It was that same day. But what would you say happens at the other schools? What do we need to know about, what happens in the room?
From what I remember, other schools, some schools did some talking. Some schools, I mean, I'm trying to remember all my memories from all the other 9 schools. From what I remember, there were some schools that I just did my monologues and there was no conversation after. Like I literally walked in, did the pieces, left, no callback, nothing. Other schools, I had schools that like sat me down to have a conversation after I did my pieces. Like I did the 2 pieces and then they were like, let's have a conversation. And we just talked about my life and like my school life and why I want to go to this school and a bunch of different things. I think Rutgers also had a callback weekend, but they don't have the same initial day, like callback, and then the callback weekend is just like one audition and then the callback weekend later on. Yeah, I had a variety of different experiences. Different schools approach the process different ways. I found that Juilliard's was a little more like hands-on, like they actually like cared to really go through and see everyone. Excuse me. They really cared to like thoroughly assess each person, not in like a bad way, but just like try to get to know who you are as like a person and an artist. I kind of really hated the schools that like kind of felt like I was going in and out and like they were just like trying to see me really quickly before they got to the next person. Even though that's like a time constraint, it just kind of felt like, okay, well, if I do go to this school, then how do I know that like you care about me as like an individual and an artist and not just like this person that can do this piece really well, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah, good point. We have another question in the chat box.
Yeah.
Gina asked, how much... Gina in the house. Gina asked, how much or what kind of training did you have other than performing arts high school training? Maybe outside of that, or, you know.
Cool.
Yeah.
I'll start with that. I started taking musical theater classes, which was actually the opposite of, I wanted to be a singer. And so my mother put me in a musical theater class, and I was like, okay, I guess I'll do this acting and this dancing thing that comes along with this singing thing that I want to do. So that was my first introduction to any type of theater arts class. I took a musical theater class. We learned some songs. We did a couple of musical scenes. Then I started taking acting class around 11, 12.
This is just in your community.
Say it again.
Are you saying this is just in your community?
Oh, yeah, right, absolutely. It was actually a place called The Stage. It was called The Stage. It was out in Long Island. I would go to acting class, I think, every Tuesday from like 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. And, you know, it was great to have some parents who were dedicated to my dream, who drove me out to Long Island every Tuesday to go do these classes.
Thank you.
But yeah, right. Thank you, parents. But before high school, that was the only thing before high school. High school was probably the most intense or the most, I was inundated with arts around me. High school was the most time I was like, oh, this is what I do all day. This is
like a community.
Different types of classes. I'm around other actors, other people who have the same mindset. That was the first time I was like, immersed. There we go, immersed in the art. Yeah.
Britnie, what would you say?
I'd say, during high school, I didn't take any outside of school classes. I didn't take any outside of school acting, musical theater classes. But before high school, when I was in middle school, I spent a lot of time. It was this place called Acting Out. It's in Brooklyn. It's like they have musical theater, they have just like vocal and singing lessons. Spent a lot of time there. I took musical theater classes there. I took regular acting classes there. They had like these prep courses kind of thing when it came to auditioning for high schools, and we would take like movement classes and like regular one-on-one coaching sessions. And again, like, thank you to the parents that drove me there like every like Monday, Wednesday, Friday, for like years, taking me back and forth there, which is a long drive. So yeah, that was like the only outside of school thing. I definitely count like going to Brandon for those sessions as like an outside of school thing, because like not a lot of people, at least in my class or in my school, were taking time to do outside of school sessions for auditions. So yeah, that was like that year with like Brandon was definitely a lot of
But see, and you know, that's the thing though, that sometimes it's two things. Sometimes people actually don't have the resource and don't know that the resource is available. But also sometimes underestimate how prepared you need to be. I say you need to prepare yourself to the caliber of response that you're looking to receive.
Yeah.
Like, you know, you want to get to the most awesome school, you got to go ahead and prepare yourself awesomely. You know?
I can tell you this. And I did not know Britney's story before today. Today, you know, we met, but every single person I've met that went to Juilliard, all my classmates, every alumni I've ever met, and I can't speak for other schools because I don't know that whole community, but I know the whole community at Juilliard. Every single person got coaching. Not one person just said like, yeah, I just figured it out. No, you know? So that's really cool. I want to just share what I did outside of my schooling. And now I went to a public school. I didn't even go to a performing arts high school. So I didn't have, you know, singing class in high school, dance class in high school, whatever. Like I basically had acting class, and, you know, we got brought in some guest artists every once in a while. I took full advantage of that. We had a 1-week Shakespeare workshop with this one guy for a week, and we got to pay for it, you know, and I was like, I'm paying for that. And it was the best week ever. Learned a lot. My whole foundation of Shakespeare was that week. So I got that. I opted in there. I did a summer workshop every single year. One was Utah Shakespeare Festival. One was a little festival, not a festival, but a workshop in New York City, which I was like, oh, cool. I get to do a workshop and I'm in New York City. So anything outside of school that I could get was good. I didn't do any acting classes in my community because I was part of a pretty good program and I felt I was taken care of, but anything that my program recommended, I would look into. So yeah, I think acting outside of your performing arts high school or even your high school, getting training outside of that is really helpful because you get to process things on your own in a different way with different coaches in a different setting with different actors, right? So that helps you be able to play harder. We have another question from A. Sanding.
A. Sanding, what's going on?
A. Sanding, I can't wait to learn your first name. How important is the singing portion of the Juilliard audition? And do you have to be a great singer to be admitted? Well, A. Sanding, you clearly came on late to this live. We're going to run right past that. But yes, we spoke about that earlier. You definitely do not have to be a great singer, as me and Britney have claimed to not be, although Brandon is virtuoso. And how important is it? It's important because they want to see if you can channel your acting through another medium. So it is important, and you should fully prepare it just like you're preparing your monologues. Now, how important is the quality of your voice? Not as, but that didn't stop me. I went to the choir teacher. I prepared it as well as I possibly could. And when they told me do you have a song? I said, yep. And I started right into it and I sold the crap out of it. So it's important. Would y'all agree?
Yeah.
Yep.
Definitely.
Absolutely.
All right, let's get into some meat here. I know we have been avoiding we haven't been avoiding. We've just been doing other stuff. So let's talk about this. When it talks about how we did it, our story, I want to know how you felt after your auditions.
Like
how did
after
you feel going home?
Oh, going home that night? I felt pretty, I mean, I don't know how I felt in terms of getting into the school. I really wasn't thinking that far ahead, to be quite honest. I was really I was happy with the day, to be quite honest. I didn't really start considering whether I got in or not until like callback weekend was over. But the day of like that finishing my initial audition and then finishing the callback, the end of day callback, I felt really good. Just in that, like, I had kind of let go of the idea of like, I let go of responsibility to any idea or anything. And I was just like, well, I feel like I had a good time today and that's it, you know? And then I left.
You were present, you gave it your all.
I left
Yes,
feeling very much
yes.
like that. I was like, well, I just did my very best and that was that. And whatever happens, happens. But that did, I will say that did waver. I mean, I feel like there's no perfect way of looking at it. You know, I know people that left that initial day feeling like, oh my God, didn't get in. This is totally done. And they did, you know? And there were moments where I was like, maybe I didn't get in. I don't really know. I'm trying my best. So yeah,
And that's all that's
I think,
important.
yeah, it's just like literally just knowing that like
Right.
you gave it your all. I mean, that's all I could give. Because when it's like out of your hands, like you finish the day, you just got to give it up. Like whatever happens, happens. You know, as long as you know that you did your very best, you tried your hardest.
Right.
It's like you don't
I
know.
always say too, like even with auditions, regardless if it's college auditions or regular auditions, you want to have a good time, do the best work that you think you can do, and book the room.
Mm-hmm.
As I say, book the room in terms of you want the people in the room to feel like you did a great job. So then, like if there's an outside regular audition, so then they'll call you back or they'll remember you. But book the
Mm-hmm.
room, and if you feel like you did great and you did the best that you could do, that's all that matters.
Really?
I left my audition, I feel like on like another planet a little bit. Like I
Yeah.
was like, what just happened? And especially because I knew nothing about Juilliard. And there was a storm, there was a snowstorm that day too. And so I took the train back to Queens. And I just remember walking the streets, kind of the snow was falling. It was about like 11:30 at night. And I was like, what did I just experience?
Yeah.
Like I just had a smooth 8-9 hours of just
Oh my
inundated and doing
God.
my pieces, doing physical exercises and doing vocal exercises. And like, I was just like, whoa.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't, I don't even think I thought, did I get in? Did I get in? You're just kind of proud of yourself for being able to complete and get through what you went through.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I like feel like 90% of me was just like marveling at the fact that that day happened, like
Right.
from beginning to end, because so much happens in that day. Just from like the moment you walk in at like 8:30 until when you leave, because I left like 11:30. My brain was just trying to process what that was, because like you, I had known what Juilliard was, but to be quite honest, I never really considered like whether I could get in or anything. Like I was just thinking, oh, this is a school. It's like the school that everybody knows. But I never really thought like, oh my God, I want to go to Juilliard. Juilliard's my number one school. You know, like I had thought like, oh, this is a great school, great opportunity, whatever. And then after that day, I was like, oh my God, so much has happened. There's so much going on here.
Yeah. That's awesome. Me too. I had the glow. I was fortunate enough to be auditioning for the school in San Francisco, which means that I did not have the added environment of New York City or all those people who audition in New York. I had a very small group of people, only like 80 that day. And all 5 of us who came from my high school, who we auditioned together in San Francisco, we all got called back.
Mm-hmm.
So
Wow.
I was literally in a callback with my 4 best friends, you know, plus
That's
2 others,
great.
one from Australia and one from whatever. So at the end, it was all 5 of us, and we were just like, whoa. And we just walked San Francisco, and like, yeah, it was like midnight. There was like homeless people yelling at us, and we were happy. It was great. Okay, so I want to ask you guys about your pieces. We often talk about pieces and monologues. That's a big part of getting in. So if we're talking about how we got in, I want to ask you guys, how did you feel on a scale of 1 to 100 about your pieces? Like, what was your relationship, feelings-wise, to your piece? Did you love it? Did you like do it? Or, you know, a scale of 1 to 100, kind of talk about your relationship to your pieces.
I loved Jitney and I loved Antony and Cleopatra. I love them both very deeply, and I was deeply connected to both of them in ways that I hadn't even known when I had initially started doing them. It took like months for me to start realizing, oh my God, I connect to this, I connect to that, connect to that. The other two,
beautiful.
Yeah.
the other two, I love them too, to be quite honest. I would say that like I felt confident about both other two, like completely confident about it, but the connection just wasn't as deep. You know, I could do it and feel like conviction and feel confident and great, but I felt emotionally drawn to those other two. And I think, yeah, and I wouldn't have changed any of the four, honestly. Like I don't, yeah, I couldn't have imagined doing any other than the four. You know, and the weird thing about it is that I felt like the submission piece was that was the one that I had initially read, and I was like, oh, this is me, I'm gonna do this one. And then later on, I had like slowly realized that like, oh, I'm just not as connected as I am to something like Jitney, where like me and the character have literally like maybe 4 things in common on paper. Whereas like the submission, I have like almost everything in common with her. And it was like, it takes time, you know, it really takes time for you to realize like, you know, sometimes the thing that you read and you're like, oh my God, this is me, is like actually not as connected as the thing that you're like, wait, like maybe I don't know. And like sometimes that's not true, but for me, I found it to be like, there were pieces that I had initially read that I was like attached to, that I later on found that I actually wasn't that attached to.
This does harken back a little bit to what we said earlier. For those that missed it, she had some pieces, but she did not end up actually auditioning with them because she wasn't really responding to them. Mm-hmm. And I had a similar story. There was one that I was like gung-ho about. I was like, this is the piece. This is mm-hmm. me. I respond to it. And literally 2 months, like probably December before January auditions or whatever, I said, I don't think this is going to be, I don't like it anymore. Mm-hmm. Something about it. And my Richard II monologue, which I did for Juilliard, but actually never did for any other schools, I only picked that up maybe November, October. Mm. So that was kind of like, yeah. Brandon, how did you feel about your pieces? Wait. Before you do, I want to know 0 to 100. Let's hear it. What do you think, Britnie?
I'd say for Jitney and Antony and Cleopatra, I'd say like 99, 100. Like I love those two.
Yeah. All right. That's what I'm talking about. Fired up. All right, Brandon.
Man, you know, to be real honest, I was sitting here listening to you speak, Britnie, and I love your experience, and you speak so articulately about, you're able to verbalize some great things that I was thinking. Like, for example, Juilliard changed me in a way that it took me from a performer to an artist. Mm-hmm. So in the way you're speaking about your pieces, honestly, back then I didn't think about them that way. I don't know how much I had in common with my characters, to be honest. Like that wasn't my through line to acting at that time, where I was in my development. So for me, like, I love the Othello because I love the drama of the scene. I love what he was talking about, and I love the emotion. The same reason why I liked Before It Hits Home. I was like, ooh, I get to cry. Let me explore that. I loved the process of being able to do that. Mm-hmm. You know, totally. Now it's different. Like having a technique and having training and having these tools. Now I'm like, ooh, I want to do Before It Hits Home so I can like focus more on the story. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So for my pieces, sure, I felt connected to them in the fact that I had the ability to do them. I had the ability to carry them off.
And that's really valuable, like that you say that, though, and that you share that, Brandon. Again, this is the type of stuff you would never hear from other folks. You know, these are the type of gold nuggets you get on this call, is that, like, you know, there's a lot of people out there who are in high school or who are not yet trained, like from a conservatory standpoint, that just are good performers. Just we like performing and we like acting like the scene, or we know what the scene should be and we go for it, and we can convince audiences to get into that, you know, and that's not really the pinnacle you learn. But that is a great place because it comes from passion, that desire to tell that story, that desire to be in front of people. That is raw and that needs to be brought. And that's exactly what Brandon's saying. He had raw passion. He has raw talent. And he doesn't, you know, necessarily, he's been able to finesse it, dimensionalize it, deepen it, all that stuff that, you know, I saw him go through in those 4 years together. We both did. But yeah, I mean, I was kind of in the middle, you know, where one of my pieces, I would say I had like a 70 to an 80% love for, because really it didn't hit me at my core, but I was damn good at it. I knew how to do that piece because I just knew what it needed. When I read it on the page, I was like, oh, I know what this is. Watch. And I do that. You know, it's not like I connected to some cathartic moment in my own life or anything. I performed it well. And, you know, I got a lot of good feedback, even from Juilliard teachers. Michael Kahn, who was the head of Juilliard at the time I got accepted, he came up to me afterwards. He was like, I've never seen that piece done that way before. Thank you. Yeah. I was like, you're welcome. You know, like, what do I know? But the other one, Italian American Reconciliation, I just loved. I still love it. I loved it so much that I produced the full production of it while I was at school on summer break. I still love that play. I could recite the monologue super quick. I mean, it's just in me. They told me to really adjust that piece a lot in the audition. They were like, try this, try that. And I would just go wherever they wanted me to go with it. I was so flexible with that piece. You tell me whatever. I got the words. Like,
oh, and to speak on that, the reason Anthony was able to be so flexible and go this way and go that way is because him and the piece were almost one. He was so prepared with that piece, knew his character, knew his circumstances, like of what could still ring truthful in the parameters that the director, that the teacher, the auditor was giving him. Like, there's wonderful chaos and there's wonderful discoveries that can happen in a box. The given circumstances are a box. Or how your character thinks is a box. What characters say about you is a box. But this is a great box to be in, because then you can only but tell a truthful story within those parameters. So I just think that's great. You were so well prepared that you were able to take direction and flip it on its head and still make it work.
Right. That's what directors in the real world ask of you, you know, like, and sometimes not in very conducive ways, you know, sometimes like, can you be more angry with that line? And you're like, I know what you mean. Yeah. And then you just rock it out. All right. So we're getting here. We've had so much gold, you guys. I want to thank you guys so much so far. This has been awesome. And for everybody watching, thank you for, you know, being present. I hope this has been valuable. We're going to wrap it up here in a minute, but I want to ask them one final question, which is, and you can maybe think of this as a two-part question you can kind of synthesize, which is, what do you think is most important as far as how you got in? And what's a good mindset that you would encourage a student auditioning to have?
I would say, what do I think is, I don't know what I think is most important, because I think that different people found different things to be most valuable to them in the process. For me, I mean, I think you've got to fall in love with whatever you're doing. You know, I think you have to, because like there's like the acting reason of like, you know, you wanna like be able to at least like you said, do it well, you know, feel like you're doing this well, or love it and be passionate about it. But then there's like the physical on paper reason of, you might have to do this 100 times. So you don't want to do something that you don't feel confident about or love 100 times, because by the end you're just going to feel so drained. Another thing that I found to be most important was, and that I just love to read, it's that I thoroughly enjoyed working before I prepared for these, when I was preparing for these auditions. I thoroughly enjoyed showing up to sessions with Brandon and working on my pieces. I thoroughly enjoyed that. And it was hard, you know, like going back and forth on these pieces and, you know, preparing and practicing all the time, but I enjoyed myself. And I think I gained so much just from those 9, there's probably less than 9, I don't even know how many months, but those months working, just really working and figuring out what I like and what I want to do, and, you know, finding pieces and going through them and spending the time on them. I really enjoyed that process. I thoroughly did. And it's a hard process. It really is. Like, I remember my friends making fun of me because I used to sit in classes and, like, I would mumble my pieces under my breath. I would literally be sitting in like pre-calculus and just be mumbling my pieces under my breath. And it would give me relief. Like, it would give me so much relief to be in there, just mumbling my pieces, or like writing down my lines on a piece of paper to remember, to know that I know them. And it was a fun process. So I think that finding a way to make this process fun for you and enjoying it, and really taking the time to enjoy and invest in these pieces, because at the end of the day, this process is not for anybody, it's just for you. It is just for you. So finding the time to really enjoy it, I think is a very, very, very important thing to do, because it's long, you know, it's a long, and senior year feels like forever and a day. So finding a way to enjoy it, and really sink your teeth into what you're doing, I think that's essential.
That's amazing.
What was your
That's
second
awesome,
question
B.
again?
Was a good mindset to have about the process. Yeah, and then, you know, that's kind of it's kind of one thing. But if you have anything more to add,
my mindset.
I mean,
yeah, I think I said it honestly.
Yeah.
Like, I think that, and the other biggest thing that I took away from this process is that I didn't, you know, I had schools that I would say were my quote unquote top. Like, I was like, oh, I want to go to at least a school, you know, but it was mostly just about, because there are schools that on paper, you know, they look like the best school and they're like top rated, like Juilliard's a top school, you know, but there are people who literally wouldn't enjoy their time at Juilliard because it's just not the school for them.
Yes.
You know, it's just not the school for them. And
Yeah.
that, just like I wouldn't have a good time at USC, even though it's a phenomenal school, I wouldn't have a good time there because it's not the school for me, you know. And I feel like just getting it out of your head that, like, the school on paper, like the top 2-3 schools, which are phenomenal schools, are great schools, have to be the school for you. Because when I walked into the building of Juilliard, I immediately was like, oh, I really like it here. I really like it here. And there were schools that I walked in that I was like, oh, I don't, and that I had thought like, oh, I want to go here. And then I walked in and I was like, ooh, like something about this just, and I went through the audition and I was like, oh, something about this, it just isn't fitting me right. And it's like, you have to follow that gut feeling, you know, just because you didn't get into the school that you wanted to get into doesn't mean, you know, that was the school. Like, it doesn't mean that just because it's the school that you want on paper means that it's the school for you. You know what I mean? Follow your gut, follow what feels right, you know, and your gut and your feelings will tell you a lot in this audition process. It will tell you so much.
Yes.
100%.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. B, that's on it. That's on it, man. You said, I'm probably just going to jump in your coattails and repeat a lot of things you said briefly, is that absolutely, you want to have fun.
Mm-hmm.
Acting at the same time is something that we do for others. It's supposed to be a gift. We're supposed to be giving. But at the same time, it's something you totally can do for your own well-being. Something that really motivates me and keeps me mentally, like, ready for life almost. So I think going into these auditions, you want to have a clear understanding of why. Why you're doing it. Why I'm auditioning for drama school, period. And just making sure that's strong enough for you to sustain you to always go back, like, right, this is why I'm doing this. This is why I'm doing this. That was the most important thing for me. And to know that I'm not doing it to impress anybody else. This is truly, truly for me and my future. It's the one time as a kid that you get to have that much control over your life in terms of, I'm going to make the decision to try to get into this, to go that way as much as possible. Now, of course, I have to be accepted, but I'm going to take all the control that I have and put that energy that way. And then I'm going to take it all and put it that way. So knowing that you have the control and you're doing it for yourself, I think that's big.
That's awesome. Yeah, both of those are amazing. I would agree with both. For me, I distinctly remember feeling awesome when I was in the waiting room, because I kind of had that voice in my head that was screaming, "You got this."
Yeah.
You know, like Britnie got that message voice memo from Brandon, like, you are the, you know, you're awesome, you got this, right? I would love to hear that voice memo, because that's probably what was playing in my head.
I still have it.
Oh, that'd be
No
awesome.
way.
I still have
totally hear that.
I still have it.
When we get Britnie on a podcast, I'm gonna
play
that's
it.
gonna be the intro to her
I
podcast.
still have it. There was a point in the year where I was like sad and I played that for myself. I was
Oh my gosh, that's
I was like sad
amazing.
and I was like, let me just play this
B.
voice memo.
That's it for me. For me, like, yes, you got to be in love with your pieces. Yes, you got to know that you're doing it for you and all that stuff. But there's one advantage that I knew I had, and it was self-confidence. When I walked into that room, I was like, hey, guy. Like, I didn't say it like that, but I was, my whole spirit walked into that room. And I was, and it's not an arrogance. It's not like a cockiness. It's just,
you were confident because you're
confidence. I'm super pumped. And when you tell me go ahead, let me take 3 breaths and you better watch out. You know, like, that's what I was screaming in my head, like, you got this. I remember being in the waiting room, and there were some thoughts that kind of went through my head and out, which were like, uh-oh, I'm at Juilliard, you know? But those just kind of went boom and out, because this voice was way too big, and it was just like, you know? So I hope you guys really enjoyed all these perspectives. I know I did. It's always great to talk about it. When you go to a top school, I don't care if it's any of the top schools, Juilliard, NYU, Carnegie Mellon, Temple, all these great schools, there's probably like, you know, a good 7 to 10 that are just world-class schools. You will want to talk about it for the rest of your life, because it's a really fun moment. And you just know that there's something beyond the sort of regular day-to-day experience when you had that audition, as Britnie so eloquently put it. So that's it. We have gone 1 hour. We thank you guys for your time, and we'll wrap it up with, you know, just a reminder that the red carpet is laid out for you to get great coaching, not good coaching, but great coaching on your monologues from Brandon and myself at How to Get Into Drama School. You can find all the details at howtogetintodраmaschool.com. Britnie is our guest. She is a living witness of someone who got great coaching, got into a great school, and we thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
The insight, it's so important. Firsthand experience. It's just great. And it's great to hear your story, to see how you're flourishing. It's just awesome. It's inspiring. It's inspiring.
Thank you so much. Oh my gosh. Thank you. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you guys. You guys can sign off now. We can't wait to see you next week. Follow our Instagram to keep up to date with our YouTube live promotions, and we'll see you next time. Have a good one.
Bye, everybody.